we'll start here. So we've got an e-learning course, building an online learning strategy, got a few registrations in here. We've just actually taken a registration for Albert, created today. He doesn't have an order, but he could easily have an order for this course. The only setup I need actually within this is I need the code to match up to the Coassemble code. So if I go into edit quickly, you can see here my e-learning code is set to the same as what's going to be the Coassemble one. That will make sense in just a moment. We can see over here, we want to add Albert to this, building an online learning strategy, right here. This is the course, but right now there's no way other than manually adding him to do so. So that's where Zapier is going to come in. So I'm over in my my Zapier account now. I'm going to create a new Zap. We're going to walk through this one. I'm going to show you how to do it. And I'm going to run you through a couple of other Zaps, which I've already made just as examples to show you what else can be done as well. So we're going to start off with Arlo, and we need to select an new e-learning registration. And I'm just going to hook up my account, or choose my account. You might need to hook up your account. It's the first time you're using Zapier. And we just want to pull the contact information in as well. So we have Albert's contact information, so we can create him as a user and enroll him. So I'm going to test that trigger. And that was Zapier going to Arlo requesting some information. So it's pulled the latest registration, e-learning registration, which is Albert, which is fantastic. So we can use him as our sample while we build this out. Great. So we've got the e-learning registration information from Arlo. That's now extracted and ready to use within this Zap. Every time a new e-learning registration comes in, it's going to pull all that information and use it. We need to quickly just make sure he's an approved registrant. Right. So we can have a look here. We can see he's approved here. We just need to make sure that we validate that within Zapier, because we don't want to add unapproved registrants to an e-learning course. You might want to do that. If you can, it's fine. You could leave this filter out. But in this instance, I want to know that they're approved registrants, typically because they've paid their order then. Great, that works on that. And then we're going to add in another step. This is another action. This time we're going to start adding the information to Coassemble. Now, Coassemble has two parts to add someone. The first thing we need to do is create them as a user. So just going to open that up. Continue, and I'm going to choose my account. Again, you'll need to hook up your account. It's very easy to hook up both Arlo and Coassemble to Zapier. It's just a case of logging in. A little pop-up appears. So we have some some required fields we need to match. And this is a cool thing about Zapier. All I'm doing is just matching information. So for the username, I'm going to use the email. So I can search for his email. This is from that new registration step. I'm going to leave the password blank. They'll set that when they first log in. They need their email address. This is for the contact information instead, rather than the username. That's fine. We can add that in. Anyone who's going to be getting added, I know is a learner, so I'm going to set them as a learner. And then the rest of these, as you can see, I'm just mapping the fields. First name to first name, last name to last name, where this would normally need to be done in code. I'm doing this just by doing this. Now, this avatar field, I'm actually going to use the sign else. I'm going to type in ID number here because I'm going to take their registration ID. And you're going to see why I want their registration ID later when I show you a different Zap in just a moment, actually. But we're going to have that there. We can leave all of these bits. We don't need to worry about those. They're just some different settings. We're just going to test, make sure that Albert's now being made inside of Coassemble. So everything, there we go. User was just sent to Coassemble, wonderful. And then now we've created him, we need to actually enroll him on the correct course. So we are going to create an enrollment. Go next, again, just select my account. And then it gives you the choice. So you could either add someone to a group or a course. In this instance, we want a course, but you can see how easy it is to add someone to a group and you assign that group to the right course within Coassemble. So that's great for private training. We're going to choose the course. Now, this is where, sorry, it's just having to think about it. And I was having to think. So you can do one or two things here. Either I can specify exactly which course I want. And this is what we would consider a one-to-one mapping. So for one type of registration coming in, I want them all to go to one type of course. Or maybe within the filter here, I can say only allow people who have a certain course name or course tag or course code to proceed. So that's one way of doing this, but it's more economic if I can say, right, for any e-learning registration, I want you to check whether there's a course within Coassemble that they exist within or can be enrolled within as well. And we can do that because you remember where I mentioned we changed the course code here, right, to this code here. Well, if we look, 5658, I think it was that, what was it? 56585 is actually the ID number of this course. So this is just the name, right? This is the actual ID that specifies it. Same in Arlo that we have lots of IDs, users, registration, event IDs, same thing for Coassemble. So by setting the course code as the Coassemble course ID, I can go into here and I can type in code, and we see here we have the e-learning code, and it's the same thing, 56585. And I can select that, and I've now specified that for this e-learning registration, enroll him on 56585, but maybe he has a different one. Maybe he's actually part of, maybe he's going to get enrolled on how to build a website. That's 56788. So for the e-learning course, how to build a website, I would have the course code of 56788, and I would specify that instead. But here, all we need to do is put in e-learning code. That's going to dynamically change based on which event they've registered themselves on. Easy as that, right? We now have a many-to-many mapping. Super simple, super cost-effective way of doing this. So quick and easy. As a user, we're going to do the same thing again, right? I'm going to go across to the custom, but this time I'm taking the information from the new user I created in Coassemble. And I actually need to use their ID here. So I put that in. And then finally, the role is a learner. You could assign him as a teacher. We don't need to do that. They're obviously going to be a learner. And I'm just going to test and review that step. Awesome, there we go. So if we jump back into Coassemble now, and we go into users, we should see, oh, there he is, Albert Lampley. He's actually enrolled on 2 courses. So both how to build a website, and we've just invited him. Sorry, we've just invited him to 26th of November, how to build a website, and he's part of building an online learning strategy as well. Easy as that, right? I can now give us a name, enroll new Arlo e-learning Coassemble course. Done. Turn that on. Just gonna have a think about it. It's thrown an error, but that would turn it on. It would just be working forevermore in the background. Any new e-learning registrations that come through that have the right code will get enrolled on the right e-learning course. It was as easy as that, right? There is documentation up for this right now. There is a Zap template which you can use. You can press one button, says try to Zap. It is built out exactly as you see like this. All you need to do is hook up your Arlo account, hook up your Coassemble account in both of these steps. Make sure you've got your right ID numbers in your e-learning course codes here. You can get those from this create enrollment step we saw just by looking at the course here, and you're good to go. That's it, easy as that. Okay, so that's an example of just an e-learning, like bought an e-learning course, enroll them on it. What about if we wanted to go for a blended learning, so a more complicated one? We've talked about that a lot today. We can take a look at that as well. So this is one I've made earlier. Instead here, we're seeing we're a new multi-session event. So in this instance, Albert's actually joined the Online Development Bootcamp. And it's 2 sessions, quite easy. It's an introduction to online development on the 31st of March. And on the 20th of May, he's going to go to the How to Build a Website. These are both physical sessions, right? So they have a location. They're hosted at our fake London office. But there's also the online aspect of that, right? It's a blended learning course. We want to add him to the e-learning aspect of that. Well, this is what this Zap is doing. It is exactly the same as the one we just built for the e-learning, but instead we're taking a multi-session event registration. It could be a basic event, single session as well, but we're taking a multi-session one. We can see here, it's probably got, here we go, Albert again, multi-4 online development bootcamp. Great, that's fine. We're doing the same things we did beforehand. We're specifying that he's on the right course and that he's an approved registrant. We're creating him. This would actually be a find or create step instead of just a straight create. We are then creating the enrollment in Coassemble. We are then going further where I talked about being able to build more complicated workflows, right? We then want to add him to the MailChimp list that belongs to this blended learning course. So he's receiving customized marketing communication and maybe course communication through MailChimp because he's automatically added to that list. That's awesome. We are adding him to a spreadsheet because we need those details to send off, let's say, an accrediting body for them to validate the people to authorize the people who are on this blended learning course. And then we're going to send an outbound email to the presenter of this course or the staff taking this course saying, hey, there's a new person on there, Albert, here is his details. He's got his access, he's all set up, right? This took me about 20 minutes to make, right? I obviously I had these set up, so I had the list set up, I had my spreadsheet set up, I know the email I want to send, but the actual building of this app took me about 20 minutes. It is easy as that to do that. So that's a blended learning one with a more sophisticated workflow. That's great. Okay, but there's the whole other aspect of what happens when someone finishes that blended, that Coassemble course. Well, we want to be able to take their completion and put that back into Arlo so we can record it. And that's where we talked about being able to send those certificates automatically based on criteria, and then also just being able to report on these sorts of things as well, or maybe as certifications associated to it. So Coassemble has the course completed trigger. We can see here, we just have an example. In this instance, it's myself, that I have passed a course, right? So I think it should say I did building an online learning strategy. I passed, I got 100% on it. Thank you. And there's some other useful information to do with how long it took me, the actual report URL, so I can input that into Arlo, so I can access the report from my progress and my my results within Coassemble. But all the information to do with the completion is held in there. I have a utility here. This is actually just taking care of converting some text for me. So Coassemble has as a true/false status for whether they passed, but in Arlo we use pass/fail. So this is a utility function that Zapier builds, which is just saying, look up this value. So look up the passed field, check what the value is in it, and if it's true, change that to pass. If it's false, change that to fail. And if you don't know what it is, leave it as unknown, which is an option in Arlo as well. So that's just doing a little bit of conversion for me. And then I'm going in here, and you remember where I talked about we put the registration ID in the avatar field? Well, that's for this section, because here I can then call, I'm not actually doing it here because this was beforehand, but I can call the avatar field here, right? So I would type this in, right, use avatar, and it would have the ID number that which we just saw in there populated in this. Sorry, I should have had that set up for you. But then that's specifying the registration ID, which is telling me who I want to update. I can then update the attendance just straight away, because I know this is a completed course. I know I can mark them as attended. We see here, this is where I've got that pass. So I'm taking the converted true and inputting a pass, and then I'm using the grade as the score percentage. So it could be 75%, in this instance, it's 100%. And that if you have custom fields as well, so maybe if this was the, a field for the report URL, I could take that and drop it in there. And then I can run through this. I'll test it. Obviously, it would send the information out to that registration for me. The ID field's missing in this instance, but I could turn that Zap on, and then for everyone who completes a course in Coassemble, I can pass that information back into Arlo. So then within here, at the end of that course, Albert is going to have the grade as the percentage. He's going to have maybe a pass. Maybe he's got 85%, right? And then maybe he also, within one of these fields, there's the link to his results report. So you can see how easy it is for me to build out these Zaps for really powerful functionality without touching code, without really needing to do much work beyond, especially if you're using our templates through the docs. All you're doing is connecting up the accounts, and you have a pretty fully fledged integration between Coassemble and Arlo. And that's putting you in such a strong position.